Alright guys, in this module I'll be talking about TestNG and how to run TestNG code through Ant. In the last module I discussed about JUnit. So if you are learning Selenium, there's no need to learn JUnit and TestNG both. Alright, because both are same, their purpose is same. The only thing is you can use either JUnit to do the testing with Selenium, or you can use TestNG to do testing with Selenium. So if you have watched the JUnit module, then you shouldn't be watching this one because there's no need of learning both of them unless you are very good at JUnit and you want to explicitly work on TestNG, then do watch this. Alright, so if you're doing JUnit, then do the frameworks with JUnit, everything with JUnit. If you're doing test with TestNG, do the framework modules of TestNG. Alright, so let's start with TestNG. Okay, now why are these frameworks JUnit and TestNG and all, why are these important? Okay, because these are important because in our tests we just don't need to just run our tests, we need to do a lot of things along with running our tests. Alright, suppose just a minute. Suppose this is my automation framework, the same diagram I had drawn earlier as well. Oops. Suppose these are my Selenium scripts, some four scripts. Okay, now I want to run them in a particular order. I want to run this one first, then this one, then this one, then this one. Maybe sometimes I'll have a need that I just want to run this script and the last one. Okay, and each script has some test data with it, which is present in this Excel file out here. So this is the Excel file. Okay, there will be some reports generated for the whole procedure of batch running, right? So these are the reports, and these are the logs. We studied about log4j, right? So what will happen is that each test will read its own test data and reports will be generated, logs will be generated. So you need some kind of central entity out here which is controlling everything, which is generating the logs, which is generating the reports, which is reading the data from the Excel file, which is actually calling the test scripts in a particular order and passing on the data to it after reading the data from this Excel file. Okay, so this central controlling thing can be either JUnit, okay, or it can be TestNG. So they both are same. So if you know TestNG, that's why I told you, if you know JUnit, then don't learn this, just go ahead with JUnit and make all the scripts with JUnit first, and after that when you're comfortable you can learn TestNG as well. Or if you know TestNG, then there's no need of learning JUnit. The both are if you compare both of them, JUnit and TestNG, then personally I think TestNG is better, right? There are more features to it. The reports are also generated automatically, and it's better than JUnit. They extended JUnit a bit and built TestNG. But if you are talking about the job perspective and the market and all, in the market of JUnit is very hot. Although these days many people are demanding TestNG in their projects, but right now JUnit is very in demand, very much in demand. A lot of jobs are there for JUnit. Alright. So if you ask me to make a framework, personally I'll make it in TestNG. But yes, if you're talking about jobs and all, if you want to switch your job, then you do JUnit. Okay. So I'll just minimize this diagram. I'll open Eclipse. I'll make a project called new Java project module 9 underscore TestNG underscore Ant. Alright, so in this module what I'll do is I'll create a new package. I'll name my package as tests, in which I will keep all my test cases, right? Now suppose these are my test cases. I have a test case named as login test. Fine. And this class basically represents my test case. Okay, generally in Java class we write public static void main functions. Okay, but in TestNG we don't write that. We write something known as annotation. Right? What is an annotation? Annotation is the method starting with @ and having the symbol test. Now this is the annotation. Anything, not the method, a word starting with @. And I will write over here public void test login. This is the name of my test case. This is a function inside which I will be writing the Selenium code in which the user will log in. And this symbol over here @test represents that this is a test case. Right? Now in order to make the test case as a TestNG test case, okay, you need to install TestNG in your Eclipse. Right? Now how do you install TestNG in your Eclipse? I'll just let you know. You just go to Google and type TestNG Eclipse. You'll get a lot of options. You select the first one, and this is the TestNG site. Okay, it's a very good site, very informative. In the documentation section over here, you get all the documentation of TestNG, everything. I also learned TestNG from here. Okay, so now in my how can you install it in Eclipse? You go to Eclipse over here and go to this link. So this is the link from where you can download TestNG. Okay, before downloading TestNG, make sure the version of Eclipse you have is as per the version which I asked you to download in module 1. Okay, I asked you to download this one, right? Download Eclipse. Module 1 I had asked you to download the 206 MB Eclipse. Let it open. I asked you to download this one, right? Make sure you have this Eclipse before installing TestNG in it. Fine. Otherwise, some people they encounter errors. Okay. So this is 3.6. Most probably you will require this URL. You copy this URL. Okay, and go to Eclipse and go into help and select the install new software out here, the option install new software, and out here you go and click on, you type the URL here, and TestNG option will automatically come up. You type the URL, hit enter, and TestNG option will come up. You click on it and go on selecting next. It will take around 15 minutes to install this, and in 15 minutes it will be installed. Currently it's actually installed in my Eclipse, and you can actually go to, after installing, to test it whether it's been installed correctly or not, you can go to window, show view, and you can select other, and inside other you can select Java, and in it you will get the option of TestNG. If TestNG successfully is installed, if it's successfully installed, then you will get this option. Okay, so this is how you install TestNG. Now out here an error is coming over the test method, it's not recognizing test. Move your mouse over the error and select the option add the TestNG library into the project. Okay, you click on it and a TestNG library will be added. Inside it there will be nothing but a jar file called testng.jar. That's it. Okay, now again move your mouse over this error and import test. Select this option. So this test annotation will be imported. Test is nothing but a class actually, and this is known as an annotation which represents a test case. Okay, suppose in this login test I write system.out.println executing login test, and I right click on this and you select the option run as TestNG test. Okay, so when you run this, you get an output like this: total test runs 1, failure 0, skips 0. Okay, you refresh this, right click on it and refresh the project. Okay, you'll get an output called test output over here, and in this your HTML reports will be present. See index.html. It's generated automatically. Okay, open it in web browser and you'll get this HTML report. Okay, I can just copy this URL as well and open it in Firefox. Right, it says that there are total 1 test case which got passed, 0 got failed, 0 got skipped. And you click on the default suite over here, you'll get the results for the first suite, first test. Okay, the results are a bit technical. Now that's the problem. That's why we have got some other reports in TestNG as well. I'll be talking about the reports in the end of this lecture, which are known as TestNG accessibility reports. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll close this report, and this report came into being because I had a test method over here @ test annotation. Now in the name of the method I've included the word test. It's always a good practice, everybody does that. Okay, include the word test into your test method as the name. Suppose I want to make another test case @ test, and I'll name my test case as public void test register. Okay, and I write over here system.out.println testing the registration, right? And I go back to it and I right click on this file and select the option run as TestNG test. There is no main method in this, no main method. Okay, so when I run this, see total test runs are 2, and if you refresh your project, the old reports will be gone, new reports will take the place. Okay, you see that if you refresh it and open index.html now, if I open index.html now, yeah, default suite, and you have these results for 2 test cases, and the default suite says that there were 2 passed, 0 failed, 0 skipped. You can also skip tests in TestNG. This is an advantage over JUnit. In reports it's not mentioned very clearly which test got skipped, but in TestNG it's by default it's mentioned, and it's easier to skip tests in TestNG and report them as well. Okay, so in JUnit when you run it through Eclipse, you can also skip it over there. I had explained it in the last video. Okay, now I have got 2 test methods, right? Okay, so now suppose in these test methods I'll be writing all the Selenium code. So I've just written a sample code inside it, but actually Selenium code will be written inside these test methods, right? Now there are various annotation methods in JUnit. There are TestNG, number of annotation methods. For example, there is an annotation method called @before test. Okay, now this method is called, I'll name it public void, suppose open connection. This method opens the database connection. Suppose it connects Java to database. Okay, I have the database connection code inside it. In the coming modules I've explained the database connection. Okay, I'll import this annotation. Now when will this method be executed and when will the test method be executed? So there's a predefined order in which these annotation methods are executed. The order is defined by in TestNG itself. You don't have control over it. The before test method is executed before executing all the tests in this class. Okay. Suppose in the before test method I write system.out.println connected to database. Okay, so this will be executed before executing both the tests. I am connected to database before executing both the test cases. And similarly, there is a method called @after test. Okay, and it will have the method public void close connection. So this will be executed after executing all the test cases. In this, I'll write system.out.println closing the database connection. So I'm just writing some dummy code inside it. So in order to learn Selenium, you have to learn TestNG or JUnit first, because you'll not be able to make a framework without actually using these two, any one of these two, TestNG or JUnit. Okay. So when I run this program, right click, run as TestNG test, it gives you an output like this. Connected to database got printed first because the before test method, it got executed. And after that it executed all the test cases inside this file. Okay, and in the end it printed closing the database connection. Alright, so we saw that before test and after test are two annotation methods which are executed before and after executing all the tests. Okay, now suppose I need to do something before and after executing a single test. Suppose I want to, before executing the test login, I want to open a browser, and after executing this test case I want to close a browser, and then again before executing the test register I want to open a browser, and after executing test register I want to close the browser, which means that I want to execute each and every of my tests in a different browser. Okay, so what I do is I'll make an annotation method called as @before method. So before method annotation, public void, I'll write the method as open browser. So inside it I'll write some Selenium code which will open the browser. Okay, system.out.println opening browser, right? And in the before method I'll just import, and opening the browser is printed inside it. So before method will be called before executing each and every test. The before test method was called before executing all the test cases. Okay, sometimes you don't know when you come across a situation in which you want to do something. Okay, so before and after executing the test cases, so that's why we use these methods. Now you use the method called after method. So this will be public void close browser, and in this I will simply write the Selenium code to close the browser, and I'm just printing system.out.println closing browser. Okay, so in this code this method will be called 2 times open browser because the test method is present 2 times. So this method open browser will be called as many times as number of test cases. So when I run this login test and I run it as the TestNG test, see that the output, first the before test method gets executed, then opening the browser, then executing login test and closing the browser, then again opening the browser, this is in the before method out here, right? Then executing the registration test, then closing the browser, and then in the end closing the database connection. Okay, right? So this is the advantage of before method and after method. They are executed for each and every test present in a test file of TestNG. Okay, Now suppose I have got another test, a new class I'll create, okay, and out here I'll write another test called as suppose sell items test. I want to sell something on my website, I'm testing that. Okay, and I'll make an annotation method inside it at the rate test public void test uh, selling books. Suppose I'm selling books on my website and I'm testing this test selling books. So this method will actually test the selling. Suppose I've got some test case in a website on which I'm selling the books. So this will just test that. So, and on this I'll import the TestNG annotation test, right? And I'll write over here system.out.println testing the books test sale of books, right? Okay, now I want to execute both these tests. If I just execute the login test run as a TestNG test, then only this test case will be executed, and I open the reports, I refreshing this. If I open the reports and refresh this form, then it will just give me reports of the login test. Okay, now I want to run both of them. If I just execute sell items run as TestNG test, then if I go to reports and refresh this now, this will just test the selling items, right? So the point is I want to execute both the test cases together as one. Okay, so for that what we do is we make a file named as testng.xml. We make an XML file, okay, and in that XML file we keep all the test cases. Okay, how do I create an XML file? XML file has to be created under the project, not under the source folder. The testng.xml is under the project. Right click on the project and select new file and name it testng.xml, right? So this is my testng.xml. In this I'll be writing some XML configurations to run my tests in a batch. Okay, for those of you who don't understand what is an XML, it's a kind of file in which you can send data in a very structured and organized manner. Okay, for example, I have to send the student records, then you can make tags in this like this: student tag, and a student tag will end like this. Then you can make a tag called name and write name into it. The tag should close. Okay, similarly age and the age something, right? Similarly you can make multiple student records in this file like this. So this is an XML file. The tag should close properly and open properly. You can give some other name over here and some other name and some other number. So similarly we are going to make an XML file. Inside the XML file we'll be making tags for each test case and we'll be describing each and every test case in that XML file. The TestNG, it will read that XML file and it will read all the tests which are present in it and will execute them in a batch manner, in a batch fashion, right? So instead of wasting my time in making this file, I'll just copy it from one of my existing projects. So this is the XML file. I'll copy the contents of this file into this. Okay, so now the first line says that the suite name, what is the test suite? I'll write it my sample suite. Now this is my sample test suite in which I'll be keeping all my test cases. Okay, so you write a test case tab like this inside it. The test name, the first test to be executed is the login test, right? So I'll name it as, I give it any name, application login. Okay, and the class in which I've written the code of that test, you can mention that. Okay, class name is tests dot login test. Okay, similarly the other test can be below this, selling books. So all the tests mentioned in this file, the paths and the spellings should be absolutely correct. Inside the tests package there is a file called cell items test, right? So I have a test suite in which I have got two test cases I mentioned in this file in a very structured manner. All the tags which I have opened, I have closed them. If you forget to close a single tag, an error will come. See that? Right? You have to close all the tags. Okay. Now all the tests which are mentioned in this file, okay, they will be serially executed. First this test will be executed. After that this one will be executed. Okay. Parallel execution of tests is possible in TestNG. That means practically seeing that both the login test and the cell items test will be executed parallelly. That means practically speaking, when Selenium will test them parallelly, it will open two browsers, one for the login test and one for the cell items. But for time being, we'll just take the serial execution. Okay, the Selenium will execute the login test and parallel, and after that it will execute the cell items test. Parallel testing, I'll explain it when I'll actually explain you the Selenium, right? So this, in these modules JUnit and TestNG, I've just explained serial execution of test cases. Okay, so for serially executing both these tests, that means first login test should execute and cell items test should be executed. You have to place this XML file under the project. That's the first rule. Second rule, you have to close all the tags and all and make sure everything is correct. Okay. Now right click on this testng.xml and select the option run as TestNG suite. Okay, and run it. So if you see the logs, then this much is my login test connected to database, closing the database connection, and testing the sale of books comes from this file, cell items, right? And if you go to the results and refresh, see that my sample suite is the suite name which I had mentioned out here in testng.xml. Okay, and after that, if it has 3 test cases inside it, if you click on it, it will mention all the tests. Application login was the first test and selling books was the second test. So inside it, you see that application login is the first test and selling books is the second test. And if you click on application login results, then test register and test login were two functions executed. And if you look at the selling books, then test selling books was executed. Now these reports are not very simple, they are quite technical in nature, right? We'll look at better reports at the end of this module when we learn Ant. Alright, so this is how you execute your test cases in a batch. Right, now for example, tomorrow some condition arises in which you want to skip the test of selling books. Okay, so for that what you'll have to do is you'll have to comment this whole stuff, right? Okay, or you have to delete this test from your testng.xml. Okay, or for example, your selling items test is dependent on whether you have logged in into your system or not. You can only execute this test only when the user has successfully logged in. Okay. So basically there can be some situation in which you want to skip the test. Okay. You want everything to go as per testng.xml. Okay. But as soon as cell items test is encountered, it should be skipped, and in the reports it should be mentioned that this test has skipped. Alright. So how do you do that? Okay. You can just, before executing this test, I'll write the method @before test. Right. In this I can write public void. The method name would be should we skip. Put this. Okay, I'm getting some error. It's disallowed at this location. Right. Okay. Now in this, in order to skip this test, okay, I can find some condition. I can write some code to check whether the user has logged in. Okay. Okay. For example, there is a function called public boolean is logged in. Something like this. This function will tell you whether the user has logged in or not. It is returning you true out here. That means that the user has currently logged in. So I can write something like this: if logged in. I can call this function. Okay, boss, tell me whether the user has logged in. If the user has not logged in, you put a not sign over here. Not of true will be false. So when it is returning true, that means that the user has logged inside. So if it returns true, not of true will be false. So the control will not go inside the if statement. Okay. But if it returns you false, if this function is returning you false, basically Selenium code will be present inside this function, which will tell you whether the user has logged in or not. Okay. Suppose this is not present, it's returning you false. Okay. In that case, you will write over here, for not of false will be true, and you will write throw new skip exception. I'm deliberately throwing an exception over here. In the module of exception handling, I told about this, that when do we deliberately throw an exception in Selenium? We generally throw it while skipping the tests. We can throw a skip exception telling that skipping because user not logged in. Right? Now, when you run this test as per testng.xml, TestNG tells you that cell items test has to be executed. So when cell items test comes, the test method is going to be called before that before test gets called. And in this before test, I have actually put some condition over here on the basis of which this test will be skipped. Is logged in function is returning you false. That means the user has not logged in. Not of false will be true, and this exception will be thrown and the test will be skipped. Okay. When I run this test as per testng.xml, I right click on it, run as TestNG suite. Then if I refresh this and I see my reports as well, okay, see this. See, in this it has written that in my sample suite, 2 test cases got passed and 1 got skipped. If I click on this, the yellow represents that the selling books was skipped. If I go to the results, and it will be the exception trace would be there, skipping because user not logged in. It's getting printed here, but it's a bit technical again. right? If you click on show all stack frames, all the exception and all will be printed. That what kind of exception got thrown. Okay, on cell items.java line number 13 and all everything. Okay, now in TestNG, I forgot to tell you one thing. There's another tab called results of running suite over here as well. If you click on it, you get a very brief description of what happened in the test. Inside the login test login and test register got passed, and inside the cell items, it got skipped. Okay, fine. So this is how you run your tests in a batch. You can skip a test by writing throw new skip exception in the beginning. Fine. And now I'll talk about something known as parameterizing the tests. Okay, that is, you want to provide test data to a test and you want to execute it more than once. For example, I'll make a new test over here. Okay, and test class, and this test class, the name of this test would be send mail test. Okay, this test will be sending a mail. All right, now in this I'll write a method called @test. I'll write the method called public void. I'll just explain you what parameterization is. You'll get to know about it in a better fashion in some time. Okay, I've got the function as test mail sending. Okay, now inside it I'll have to write some Selenium code which logs you in and sends some mail and all and other stuff. Okay, you import the test method from TestNG, and now this mail function requires a lot of stuff. It requires the body of the mail and the person to which the mail has to be sent, the subject and all and other stuff. Okay, now, and I want to execute this test 3 times. That means with 3 different sets of data, I want to execute it. I want that the two subject and mail body should be different every time I run this test 3 times. Okay, now parameterizing the tests, this is known as the concept of parameterizing. That means the concept of providing different data to the test case every time it runs. Okay, and I had explained you in the earlier modules, I think in the module 5, I had explained you, or in the module 4, oops. Yes, in the module 7, I had explained you through this file XLS reader that how do you read Excel files through Java. And basically you keep all these, when we'll practically make a framework, we'll keep all these 3 things, to subject and mail body, in an Excel file. Okay, and we'll read the Excel file and we'll call this test method with the data. Okay, so the sorry, the function of providing the data to this test is done by an annotation method known as data provider. Okay, and I'll make the method public. This method returns you an object array, a 2-dimensional object array named as get data. Okay, parameterizing your tests in TestNG is much easier than parameterizing them in JUnit. Okay, I write public object get data. This is a function which is returning your 2-dimensional array, an object array. Now in this object array, I'll make an object of called data equals to new object array. This object array will be having number of rows as 2 or as 3. That means that number of rows will be equivalent to number of times I want to execute the test. Times test has to be repeated. Okay, and number of columns will be same as number of parameters in test data. Okay, now we have got 3 parameters in the test data. So out here I'll also write 3. So to cut short, I'll make 2 rows. Okay. So I'll repeat this test 2 times. Okay, with different sets of all the 3 data. Okay, now how do I do that? I write over here I'll write the first row of this array. If you've forgotten arrays, go to the module 2. Okay, you find 2-dimensional arrays there. So first row of this module would be data 0 0 equals to the to field, that is I'm sending mail to xyz.@gmail.com. The subject data 01 equals to hello, and data 02 will be the mail body, that will be how's life. Okay, so after that I'll write the second row, that means the second set of test data for this test. Okay, I'll just copy this, and this would be 1 1 and 1 for the second row. Okay, and the mail will be sent to abc.com. Hi, life is good will be the reply. Okay, now I'll simply write return data. That's it. Everything will be taken care of. Now in JUnit, this is not so easy. All you need to write over this test is that the data provider for this test is equal to, see the D is small and P is capital. Make sure that you do that. Is equal to the name of the function which is providing you data. Had this function would have been this name, then I would have to write this over here. Okay, so to provide the function name, so data provider, I accidentally deleted it, get data. Okay, now I have provided this get data function. Similarly, if I've got some another test over here at the rate test, you can mention some other data provider for it. You can make one more annotation method data provider. So you can have multiple tests and multiple data providers. Okay, now that's over. That's it. Okay, now you need to provide some input parameters into this function. Input parameters into this function would be same as number of rows. I'll write over here string 2 comma string subject comma string what's the third one, mail or the message, right? And out here I'll simply write system.out.println 2 plus the subject plus the message. Okay, now this will be printed twice. First for XYZ hello and how's life, then for ABC hi and life is good. So automatically TestNG comes to know that because this function is returning a 2-dimensional array with 2 rows, this test method has to be called twice. Okay, so when I run this test, now that's the beauty. When I run this test, run as TestNG test, I'm just running it as a single test, not as a part of a whole batch. and I see the results. See, it prints test result runs 2 and it's printing 2 times. And if you go to this result, it will tell you that test mail sending was called with 2 different sets of data. Now that's very important while making a framework. When we make a framework in Selenium, we'll actually write code over here which will read the data from an XLS file and put it in the two-dimensional object array. We'll do this when we make the Selenium framework. Okay. For time being, I've just hard-coded this data. Okay. So the magic out here is you just have to provide number of rows equivalent to number of times you want to execute this data and number of columns equal to the number of parameters in the data. And number of columns should also be equal to number of input parameters. Now that's very important. 3 input parameters in the test method, then 3 columns. Suppose this had been one of the columns had been an integer. If I would have put an integer over here, okay, then instead of string over here, I have to write integer, not int but integer. Okay. Now when I run this again, right click, run as TestNG test. So it reports that it's executed 2 times again, right? And if I go to my main results, out here as well, 2 times default suite results 2 times, and the data is also written in the results. Okay, fine, right? Now one of the last things which we'll study in TestNG, not the last things, right? One of the things which we'll study now in TestNG would be assertions. Okay, after that we'll see how to report your errors, right? I'll make a new class called using assertions, right? Okay, now using assertions, out here I'll create a method called @test, name the method as public void test Google search. Okay, now suppose while working with Selenium, I write a line, a Selenium code to open google.com. Okay, now in the website google.com, I expect the expected title of that page. What's it? It's Google, right? The expected title of that page is Google, right? And I write the code of Selenium. Actual title of the page is Google. Suppose, just taking a small example, this actual title will actually be coming, will be using Selenium to retrieve this. Okay, fine. So I'm not teaching you Selenium right now, because if I teach you Selenium and then teach you TestNG, it will be very tough. Okay, so everything will just be very messy. Fine. So now this is the expected title and this is the actual title. Now I want to check whether the expected title of that page matches the actual title or not. And if it doesn't match, I want to report in the test that fine, something failed. I want to report in the reports of TestNG that something failed. For that we use assertions, right? Assertions are used to verify or to check whether some condition has been achieved, something matches with some value or not. If I don't use assertions, I'll have to write some if code over here. If the expected title and actual title are equal, if actual title dot equals expected title, then what? How will you put it in reports? Now assertions, they help you put it in reports. Okay, so what you do is you write over here assert dot assert equals assert equals. Assert is an inbuilt class in what do you say, TestNG. Okay, by mistake JUnit class has been imported. Just delete this and import the TestNG class, not the JUnit framework. org.testng. Assertion is present in both TestNG as well as JUnit. So you'll write assert dot assert equals. Assert is an inbuilt class in TestNG which contains assert equals method, which is static in nature. So that's why I'm able to call it with the class name dot the method name. So assert dot assert equals, you give the expected value first. You give the expected title and the actual title. So I am navigating to Google with the help of Selenium. I am extracting the title with the help of Selenium out here, and I am comparing it with the expected title like this. So when I run this test, I'll run it as a standalone test, run as TestNG test. Everything will pass. One test run, 0 failures, 0 skips. If you look at the results over here, just one test. But what if I change this to Google one? That's it. I just changed the expected title to Google one. Now when I run this test, right click, run as TestNG test, it will be reported as failure. And if you look at the code, see that? Test Google search, an assertion error has come over here, right? Okay, and if you open your reports which are generated in test output folder, right click, open index.html, open with web browser, then you see everything is red over here. That means 0 got passed, 1 was executed and 1 test failed. If you look at the results, it will test in the results. Let me open it in Mozilla. If you open the results, it will tell you the error as well. Expected Google but was Google 1. Okay, so this is assertion. It helps you to test, check as well as report it in errors, report it in reports as well. Now suppose I write over here before assertion system.out.println before assertion and system.out.println after assertion, and I run this file again, run this test again, right click, run as TestNG test. So when I run it again and I see the results in this, the exception log will also be printed that some exception came. But out here, if you look at this thing, before assertion is getting printed, but after assertion is not getting printed, right? Okay, that means that the line on which the assertion comes, on which the assertion error comes, the code after that line does not execute. No code after that line will execute. Okay, now what if you are running it in a batch? What if I make this file using assertions.java as a part of my batch execution? For making it a part of my batch execution, I'll be opening testng.xml, and the first test class I mentioned will be this. Will it stop all my test executions? That's the question. Using assertions, and I will write just the test name as learning assertions, right? Now the first test would be using assertions, and using assertions test will fail on this line. And we just saw if it fails on this line, the lines after that will not be printed. But in testng.xml, I have got test cases after this. So will the test cases after this will they be executed? So let's run this, run as TestNG suite. So when I run it as a TestNG suite, see, yes, they got executed. The first test it failed, but after that the second test got executed. Okay, test login, test register, and the third test selling books, it got skipped, right? And if I look at my reports, 1 minute, I'll just open the reports from here, refresh the test output folder, open the reports, see, open them in Mozilla. See, pass 2, failed 1, skipped 1, right? Learning, sessions got failed, selling books got skipped, and application login got passed. And it has got two test methods inside it at the rate test. So it's got two test methods inside it. Okay? So this is how you can use assertions. So the only thing is that the lines after the assertions will not be executed. Now there is some scenario in which you want to execute the lines after the assertion code. For example, fine, if the title does not match, okay, report the error of title and move forward. You want to do something like this, right? You just don't want to halt on that line. You want that report should be printed that, okay, fine, this test never got executed. Okay, sorry, this test got failed because of this reason, but you don't stop the test, you move forward. Okay. Out here I am stopping the test. So what you do is you put everything inside a try catch block. You put this assertion inside a try catch block, throwable T, right? And inside the catch block I'll write system.out.println error. Okay. So now what will happen is when assertion fails and error is thrown, because that error is thrown, that's why I've written throwable over here. Assertion error is thrown basically. And to catch errors you have to write throwable. What is throwable? It's an inbuilt class. Whenever assertion fails, an object of assertion is made in the memory. Okay, or an object of throwable is made in the memory, an object of the class throwable. T is the reference of that class. Okay, now when that gets thrown, the control will come into the catch block. In the catch block, in the exception handling, we had seen that the catch block is actually for the error recovery. The code will just not stop on this. It will come into the catch block, it will print error, and it will move further. Okay. Now when I run this as a standalone file, right click, run as TestNG test, and I see the output on the console. It prints before session, then it comes in the error because the assertion is failing. Had the assertion been passing, it would have never printed error. If both these words, Google and Google One, had been equal, it would never have come into this catch block. Okay, and then it printed after assertion. Now the problem is that the test got reported as passed because I actually got out here in the catch block I have recovered. So one more problem came that the test never passed, never failed. If I open the results, if I open the test results, if I refresh my test output folder and open index.html, then it's reporting as passed, everything is green, right? Go to default suite, then again everything is passed. You want to fail it, so out here you will have to write some Java code to fail the test. Okay, even if I execute it as a batch, it will be report passed. So some Java code has to be written out here which will report that your test has failed. Okay, now for that we'll be requiring listener. Okay, we'll be requiring a listener, right? And we'll be requiring some code, extra code. Now I'm not going to discuss this right away. Okay, in TestNG video 9 I'm not going to discuss it right away what that Java code will look like. It's a bit complex. Okay, the same thing is in JUnit as well. You have to write some Java code, but that is simple. But out here that code is a bit complex. So when I will take up the framework, I'll write the Java code here which will report the error as failed. Okay, for time being just note it down that you have to write some Java code here which will report the test as failed. So when I'll take up the framework, I'll just clarify this. Okay, now that's about TestNG. Again, when I'll take up the framework, I'll tell you how to parallelly execute your tests. Out here, I'm serially executing my tests. First login test, then sell items, then using assertions, right? While batch running. So while batch running, if I want to parallelly execute my tests, that means on one browser, one test case should be executing along with that, and on another browser, another test case should be executing. That topic as well, I'll be taking up when I will take up the framework. So basically, I'll be taking up two topics. One is parallel execution, and the other one is reporting the errors. When I take up how to build a testing framework using TestNG and Selenium. Alright, now we need to learn about Ant. Okay, now what is Ant and why it is used and why people are crazy about Ant in the market. Okay, in every opening you see for the TestNG or Selenium or JUnit, it would be written Ant. So Ant is also used with JUnit and Ant is also used with TestNG to run the code from the command prompt. If you want to run your project to the command prompt, if I'm on Eclipse, I can simply right click on testng.xml and run it as TestNG suite. Okay, but what if I have to do the same thing when I am on command prompt? I want to write some code to run testng.xml. How do I write it? Okay, for that you will have to download Ant. Ant is nothing but a build and compile tool. It will help you to execute your tests from the command prompt or from a Unix shell. Okay, suppose there's a Unix server on which your script should be running. So what Ant will do is it will run your script. It will help you to run your scripts through that Unix server. Okay, or what you need to do is you need to generate better TestNG results. There is one form of result known as TestNG XSLT reports. Now these are very user-friendly reports. Okay, some people from Google made it, I guess. Google developers. Okay, the reports look like this. The TestNG reports. Now these reports are far better than the reports which we were seeing right now. Okay, so in order to generate these kind of reports, you need to use Ant. Okay, Ant will be very helpful. Now how do you get Ant onto your machine? First thing you need to do is you need to go to Google and simply type Ant download. It's again a tool by Apache. You can go here, Apache Ant binary distributions, and download this zip file, Apache Ant 1.8.2-bin.zip. Okay, now I have downloaded it onto my C drive under the folder. Like this is the zip file. This was the zip file which I downloaded, and I extracted the zip file in this folder. Okay, so basically my ant is out here. Okay, everything in ant is out here. So you don't need to install it. It's not an installable version. All you need to do is you need to configure it in your environment variables of the system. Now how do you configure it? You copy the path of the ant where the ant is present, copy it. You see that there's a bin folder inside it, right? Just remember that there's a bin folder inside it. I'll tell you why you should be remembering that in some time. Now you should go to your My Computer, right click and go to the properties window. You'll get a window like this. In Windows 7 or Windows Vista operating system, you will not get this window like this directly. Okay, to get that window, you will have to, I have a screenshot for that. Okay, wait a minute. I was helping out one of the students that day. Where's that? Yeah, this one. In Windows Vista or Windows 7, you'll get a window like this. This window will not be present. Okay, you have to click on this link. It got hidden when I was taking the screenshot. The link on the end, Advanced System Configuration, this one, and you'll get this window. Okay, on this window, you click on the Advanced tab. Okay, now this is the same window which I'm just closing this right now, which I get when I right click on My Computer properties. Okay, Advanced. You click on the environment variables and you'll get the system variables out here. You have to make a system variable known as ant home, the way I have created over here. You click on this new button and a window like this will appear, and you make the variable ant underscore home and give the path of the ant here which you copied, the complete path, right? And now you move down and there would be a variable called path. You edit this and do not change anything in this like that. Look, don't fiddle with this. If you fiddle with this, something bad will happen with your system. Just go to the end. I've gone to the end of this variable value and put a semicolon here and paste the path of the ant again and give -bin. That means give the path of your bin directory. That's why I told you that remember the bin. You have to give it over here. I've already given it, so I'll delete it. Click OK. Click OK. OK. That's it. Now Ant is present on your system. It's been configured properly. Okay. Now you go to your command prompt. Close it if it is already opened up. Okay. If it's already opened before configuration, close it and open it again. And just type ant. Ant. Okay. I'm getting an error over here, build.xml not exist. Sometimes you might get a different error. Some of you might be experiencing an error that in some location a file called tools.jar is not present. Tools.jar. Some people encounter that error. All you need to do is you need to go to the drive, your program files. Okay. Go into the folder Java. There would be two folders, JRE and JDK. Okay. Go to the JDK folder. Go inside library. Copy this file tools.jar. Okay. Now go back and now go into JRE and go into library and paste this file. What happens is that Ant tries to find this file inside the library folder of JRE and it's unable to find that. So you copy it from JDK. Sorry, you copy it from JDK and put it in JRE. Right? Now again give Ant command and you will get the error which I am getting. Build.xml does not exist. Now what is build.xml? Now build.xml is a file which Ant searches for in whichever directory it is. It is now in h:\document settings administrator directory. So it's trying to find a file named as build.xml in this directory, and that build.xml has got all the settings, all the configurations of the project. That means that build.xml will tell you where the project is lying, in which directory, where the jar files are lying, where the reports have to be generated, where the class files have to be generated. It will be having the paths, basically all the system paths, all your project paths. Okay. For example, in Eclipse, you used to attach a jar file by right clicking and going to properties and going to Java path, build path, right? Similarly, the build.xml, it will attach the jar files from a separate directory, from the XML file, sorry, from build.xml. Okay. Now, what build.xml looks like? Okay, I'll just copy this from an existing project again in order to not waste time. You need to just copy this project and again build.xml, paste it under the project, not in the source folder, parallel to testng.xml. You'll open this file. Okay, practically you'll give the project name here. I'll just write the project name as learning TestNG, right? This is the first line, learning TestNG. And you have to define some properties. Practically, there will be two properties which you will be interested in. First is the name, ws.home. That means the name of your workspace home. That means where your workspace is present. My workspace, module 9 TestNG Ant, is present at this location. I'll copy the location and I will paste the location here. Right? Okay. Now instead of pasting the location like this, you can also write dollar base directory, base dir. That means that the place where your build.xml is present, at the same location the project is present, base directory. But you have to make sure then the build.xml is present inside the project, or you can give the full path if you want. Okay, so generally people keep build.xml inside the project. Okay, you don't keep it outside the project, right? There's another variable called workspace.jars, ws. I can give any name over here. It's not the mandatory name. You can give any property name. The value is fdrive/jars. Okay, I have kept all the jar files which I'll be needing for running a project inside fdrive. Currently, I'm not requiring any jars, right? So for time being, I'm just keep writing this. When we make the Selenium project, the framework, we will be using this. Even if you delete it right now, nothing will happen. Okay, then, but yes, don't delete this. Wait a minute. Yeah, don't delete this. Okay, keep this. Keep the right location of your jars. In one of the modules, I told you that where you can find all the jars. You can find all the jars on my website .sagesoft.com /downloads/jars.rar. Out here you can find all the jars. Okay, copy them, paste it in some directory, download in some directory and give the directory path. Why am I asking you to put the jars file is because for developing those TestNG XSLT reports, the fancy ones, you require some jars which are present here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just copy the path again inside login test. From this path you can download all the jar files. Okay, the next variable is test.destination. That means where do we have to keep all the class files. For example, I'll go to this project, my project which I'm making. I'll go physically to that location, and we know that inside the bin folder Eclipse stores all the class files, right? Now where do we want Ant to store all the class files? Ant is analogous to Eclipse. Ant is in Windows, Eclipse is in Windows, and Ant is on command prompt or Unix, right? So Ant, I'll tell you under the, Ant will read this build.xml saying that the class files have to be kept at this location, test.destination, under the folder build, under the workspace home variable, which is the current project. Make a folder build and keep all the class files. Test source, that means that where are all the Java files lying. These are lying under the source folder. And ng.result, this is the variable which tells you where your TestNG results folder is lying. This one, test output, and it's saying that the name of that folder is test output. That's it. So in your project, you just need to copy this build.xml here and correct the path of the jars. Nothing else. You'll have to do nothing else. Okay. Now you need to understand, but still, if you have to do nothing else, you still have to understand what's there in the file. There's a lot of stuff in this XML file. Basically, there are various targets in this file. You have to understand these targets. I've given the target name as clean. Okay, and it says that delete the directory test.destination. That means that delete all the class files. Test.destination holds all the class files. Fine. Now there's another target called compile. It says that if test destination is existing, delete it. After that, again create that and compile the program as per Java 1.5 version. See that these are some of the Unix commands, make directory and all. So first it deletes all the class files and regenerates all the class files. Right? Now if I have to execute these clean and compile commands from the command prompt, then on the command prompt you go to the path of this project. Path of the project means the path where this build.xml is present, because Ant will search for this build.xml. So you go to this, right, and give the command Ant, just Ant. So this prints that build successful. That means Ant will execute the test. That means Ant is able to read build.xml properly. Now give the command and compile. When you give the compile is the target name. See this? Target name compile, which tells you delete the directory test.destination. If it is existing, then make it and put all the class files in it. Okay. When you write this, see, this thing happens, build successful. Okay, you will not have to change this compile target. Don't change that. Okay, just refresh the project now and you will get a build folder made, right? Because test.destination property told you that there would be a folder called build under workspace home in which all the classes will be present. So under this build folder, all the class files will be present for each and every test. Right? Now if I give the command and clean, the other target clean, build successful, and if I refresh my project, this build folder will just go away, because the clean target tells you that delete the directory test.destination. Okay, now if I have to run the project, I'll have to again give the command and compile, make all the class files. That means make the build folder, and now I want to run the project. For that, I'll give the target run. Run the project on the basis of file testng.xml. So it will go and read the testng.xml, which is kept parallel to build.xml. Both are in the same project. See that? Both are in the same project in the same directory. So it will run it as per this file. So when I write and run and I hit enter, and will run the TestNG tests, and see, you get the same window over here. Okay, and if you refresh your project and you open test output, the index.html, would be having the reports. See that pass 3 skipped 1. Fine. So through AND you can run the project like this. Okay. Now you also have to use the TestNG XSLT reports. You have to make those reports with the help of ANT. Right? Okay. I had shown you that TestNG XSLT reports, they look something like this. For the same project, you need to develop reports like this with the help of ANT. It's very easy. No rocket science. All you have to do is, whosoever made the TestNG XSLT, he asked us to copy paste this XSLT file into the project source folder, into the source folder. He told us that just copy paste this package XSLT inside the source folder. This is having some XSL file. I also don't know what this file is doing. Okay, but you just have to copy paste it blindly because somebody else did it. Fine, uses hard work. Okay, and in your build.xml, just make this target called make XSLT reports. Now what XSLT does is, it's nothing but it's actually a wrapper on TestNG reports. Okay, now for example, this is my TestNG report. This is very technical in nature, not very good. So what TestNG XSLT will do is it will read this report and convert it into a very good format, which is very helpful and which is very flashy, which looks good. So that means for developing the XSLT reports, the TestNG reports should be already present. You cannot skip this. The test will run, this report will be generated, and after that XSLT will be generated, because XSLT report reads the TestNG reports. Okay, and for generating these reports, you require these jar files over here, these section liaison, section 8.7, these two jar files. So that's why I told you to download all the jar files and keep them at the path. That's it. Now you make a new target known as make XSLT reports. In that I will write make a directory under workspace home named as XSLT report / output. Basically at this location my XSLT reports will be present. All the reports will be just like this directory test output, right, in which my TestNG reports are present. Similarly, a directory parallel to this code named as XSLT reports will be developed, and under that a folder called output, and in that reports will be generated. Okay, and you have some targets over here where you give the path of the jar sax liaison and you give the path of your TestNG results. Basically TestNG results will be read by XSLT, and XSLT will convert that result into its own format. So just copy paste this target, nothing. In this build.xml you just have to change the project path, that means give the $base directory and just give the file, the path of your jars. Make sure the build.xml is present inside the project. These three things, that's it. Now I'll write the command and I'll copy the target name. What was that? Make XSLT reports. Hit enter. And that's it. If you refresh the project, see the XSLT reports have been made. Under it the output folder which I had generated over here. And in the output folder, index.html is present. I'll just go to the physical location. In the source folder, in the project module 9 TestNG and XSLT reports have been generated. Inside it the output, and this is index.html. Open in Firefox and you'll get a flashy report like this, that your pass percentage is 75, skip percent 25, one test got skipped. This yellow means skipped, green is passed, red is failed. Okay, and this is how you execute. Now suppose in my using assertions, I'd put a try catch right here. I'll write the line assert. I'll deliberately fail this test again. Assert dot assert, instead of equals I'll write true. Okay, and give the condition 4 greater than 3 and the message error coming because of XYZ reason. Now what is this assert true? It's again another kind of assertion. Okay, assert true means that make sure that this condition over here is should be evaluated to true, and if it is not, throw this error message. If this condition is evaluated to false, then this error message will be thrown and assertion will fail. Okay, so I'll write 4 greater than 3. When do you use this kind of assertion in Selenium? Suppose I want to check whether some link is present or not. So I'll give the Selenium command over here instead of 4 greater than 3 to find whether some link is present or not, and that command will return me true or false. And if it returns me true, assertion will pass. If it returns me false, assertion will fail. So I'm going to talk about assert true, assert false in detail when I actually work with Selenium. So assert true basically wants that the condition should be true. If it is false, then error will be thrown. So what I'll write is I'll deliberately fail the condition. Assert true 4 greater than 13, and this is the error. So this test case will fail now. And in TestNG.xml, the first test case is using assertion, so it will fail. So I'll go to my Ant, I'll give the command ant compile, that means build all the class files again because I've changed the code, and ant run the code, generate the TestNG reports, now generate the XSLT reports, and make XSLT reports. Hit enter and XSLT reports will be generated. Okay, now go here and refresh this page. See that the old reports, they got overwritten and this was the new report which is made. One failed. Which one? This one, learning assertions. Learning assertions got failed. Assertion error. Error coming because of XYZ reason. Expected true but was false. See that if you click on it again, you get the complete error stack. You can expand it by clicking, compress it by clicking again. Okay, results overview. Right, it also gives you the time taken by each test to execute. So this is the kind of report which looks good, which is impressive, and which shows your hard work. You should make this kind of report using Ant. It's very easy. Okay, if anyone has got any problem in configuring Ant or some error is coming, right, do come to me. You can contact me via email, add me on Skype, ask me questions. Fine. So this is the XSLT reports which has been made in the end. Okay. Now what if some people, what they demand is, they demand that there should be an exe file on which you double click and all your tests should run and XSLT report should get made. Getting my point? A file like exe file, you double click on it, there shouldn't be any need of opening the command prompt and giving all the commands and all, right? All you need to do is you need to just double click on a file and all the projects should run. Okay, for that you need to create a bat file, BAT. Okay, you open a notepad and it's very simple. Okay, and give the commands which you had given on the command prompt. For example, in order to run the test on the command prompt, the first thing which I did was I moved over to F directory because my project was in F directory. So in the command prompt I'll write F:. After that I had given the command that go to the project path, that is this path, that is the path where my build.xml is lying. Okay, cd, paste the path. Okay, now after that copy the same command here, cd, paste. Right, after that I gave the command and clean, then and compile, then and run, and after running I gave the command and make XSLT reports, and my reports got generated. So you give all the commands in one line. You just write ant clean compile run make XSLT reports. That's it. Clean compile run make XSLT reports. Okay. So now I am gonna store this file as an exe file, as a bat file. You save it, and on the desktop I'll simply run in double quotes. I'll give it any name. I'll just give it TestNG test suite dot bat. Give it in double quotes. Okay, give it in double quotes. Dot bat should be the extension. Okay, when you save this, you go to your desktop. This will be the kind of file generated. TestNG test suite dot bat. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my project and delete the XSLT reports. Okay, I'll refresh it and delete it. Oh, the reports are already opened in a browser. Close the browser and delete it completely. Right. Okay, now you run this bat file. Double click on it. It will go to the directory of the project, because if you right click on it and edit it, you will get the same commands. You will go to F drive, go to your project and give these commands. Okay, you can right click and edit it as well. So when you run it, double click on it, you see that a command prompt opens. It starts executing all your tests, and then the end it closes. If you go to your project and refresh this, see the magic, you get the XSLT folder here. That means the test got executed successfully. And if you open it, open index.html in a browser, you will get the same result. Right? You see that? That's the magic of XSLT reports and a bat file. Now generally what we do is we just keep this bat file in our project. I'll copy this and I'll paste it in. I'll just close all the files and I'll paste it in the project. Right click on the project and paste it. So if I paste it in the project, I'll just open it with a text editor. I need not give these commands, go to the F directory and go in the project, because this file is already present in the project. Okay, you just need to give the commands and clean compile make XSLT reports. Right, so now when I run this, this will run fine. This will actually make all the XSLT reports. I'll delete the XSLT reports folder again and go to the project path. This is the path where my TestNG test suite.bat is, right? And just double click on it. Again, everything will run. You see the folder XSLT reports, it got generated. And inside it, you'll have the index.html. So that's it. That's all about TestNG. Only two topics are left: parallel execution of tests and how to report errors. Reporting errors is the major part without stopping the scripts. Okay, so that's it. Just practice this. With time you'll get it. There are a lot of concepts, I told you, a lot of concepts. Okay, so with time you'll get all the concepts. Fine. And there are some annotation methods left as well. Fine. We'll look at it. Fine. All right, thank you. Bye.